This podcast is recorded on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Politicos. Today is August 13th, 2026.
I'm Scott Wonderboom.
And I'm Ian Bushfield. On today's show, another NDP MLA faces down a cancer diagnosis, more MPs are announcing their resignations federally, and Canada's Green Party is kicking off its leadership race to replace Elizabeth May with the person who will be replaced by Elizabeth May in a few years' time. Support this show at patreon.com/politicoast and get access to our Slack channel where the conversation continues even when we take a break to go on travels and have life events. But we don't need to say more than that if you don't want to. Let's start here in BC. How was your last 2 weeks, actually?
It was great.
Okay.
I'm exhausted from it, but good couple weeks.
Yeah. It's been busy. I flew to Ottawa and had a very fun week. Someone who's not having a good time here in British Columbia is the finance minister. That was a bad segue, but the news breaking this evening, and we'll get full details Friday, is that Finance Minister Brenda Bailey has been diagnosed with, quote, early stage treatable cancer and has a good prognosis for full recovery, which is good to hear. She's going to be receiving treatment later this summer and anticipates returning to work for the fall legislative session. But Rob Shaw is kind of hinting on Twitter, where he's still posting for some reason, that there might be a cabinet shuffle. There might be some moves to replace her, possibly with Josie Osborne taking finance, Ravi Kahlon going to health, and Brenda Bailey perhaps getting either a smaller tier portfolio or maybe just getting a little break from cabinet while she understandably addresses her personal health situation.
Yes, this is obviously sad news, and not the first cancer diagnosis for an NDP MLA. It's been a disappointingly common way for New Democrats to leave cabinet is health issues, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah. All the best to Brenda while she fights this diagnosis, and hopefully she's, back at her post soon. The, I guess, kind of silver lining Evie could take from this is cabinet shuffle, whether it's only a handful or a larger opportunity, could help him, shake things up, get out of the rump that his party has been in. Depending which poll you read, they're not in the worst spot, but given how chaotic and utter mess Carrie Lynn Findlay is as a leader, they should be running away with things.
You just said the same thing about John Rustad. That election should not have been so close if the NDP were running as tight a ship as they should have been there. And they've largely been coasting on the ineffectiveness of the opposition more than their actual merit themselves. That said, I'm not sure shaking up cabinet's really going to do much, because part of the problem is I don't think the government knows what they want to do, and particularly the head of it doesn't really seem to have a clear idea. The fiscal situation, which we'll get to in a minute, hasn't helped that. It's not giving them a lot of room to add new things, but yeah, I think this government that's going to have to get out of its late stage, we've run out of ideas, terminal governmentitis before they can recover in the polls, and not sure a new finance minister is going to be the thing that's going to do that, nor will or the two ministers meant, nor will changing out the health minister really fits that. if the Rob Shaw rumors are to be believed on Who's Getting Shuffled.
And what's great is by the time you're listening to this, you'll know exactly what has happened. And so I think we should drop the speculation for now and just let our listeners read the news or wait till next week when we can actually give the update on what the Friday news was, because sometimes that screws us. But because we didn't record for 2 weeks, we have some other news to report. The province posted its updated financial picture for the previous year, where the deficit that was supposed to be $10.9 billion actually came in at a mere $7.7 billion. Don't, praise them too much. This seems to largely be attributed to a $2.6 billion settlement from the tobacco company class action lawsuits that the province did. So that investment has really paid off. We should sue more companies, Scott. It's a good revenue generating scheme.
I mean, only when there's actually something to sue over. But it doesn't exactly speak to the broader fiscal picture for one-time inflow like this to mean much. And this is also a government that has in the past massaged the numbers by deciding when to report some of these settlements and stuff coming in. So I don't know, I'm not exactly gonna be doing a round of applause for this one, because a one-time $2.5 billion payment shows up.
There's lots of other money shifting around. Bailey, as finance minister, said they've managed to trim $167 million in government travel and the size of the public service. They also spent $4 billion less than forecast on capital projects due to projects being slow and supply chain shortages, which I guess
also in addition to the scaled back capital spending that was in the budget with the giant deficit number on it after they what was the euphemism they used for cancel?
Repacing.
Repaste. Yes.
So
I also don't think you should get a lot of credit for the fact that your project management is not going well either.
Yeah,
like if a government just doesn't do anything, it's going to have a very solid fiscal picture because it's still going to be taking in taxes, but I don't think anyone would consider that a success.
I was actually expecting some kind of improvement on the budget numbers. These things kind of happen at times, but resource revenues fluctuate. Oil has been, very high since Donald Trump decided to attack Iran, and Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. BC doesn't have a giant oil industry. We do have gas, though. So I was wondering if we would see shifts on that. But it was the tobacco lawsuit that made the difference here, and everything else kind of washed away. But still positive news for the government, even if it's not one that keeps on giving, actually changing our material situation as a province. But they can't complain when they bring their deficit down, even if it's luck more than anything. Federally, though, we have 2 more resignations to add to the extensive list of people who came out of that last election, don't really know where their place is anymore. This time it's Liberal MP Sean Chen and Conservative MP Larry Brock, who are both resigning or set to resign in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Sean Chen is resigning over health concerns following there was a traffic accident that he was involved in. And Larry Brock wants to go back to being a Crown prosecutor, which, it's not a upfront, I have no confidence in the likelihood of Pierre Poilievre actually winning an election, but it's kind of a subtle sign of it that you want to go back to your old job rather than expecting to be in government shortly.
Yeah, Chen's a weird case for the Liberals. He, earlier this year, faced a bunch of allegations that he was voting on a number of bills from China, which is against the rules. You have to be in Canada to vote, even if you're attending Parliament remotely. And those all circulated. I think a Conservative MP kind of boosted it and then deleted his tweets. And CBC has come out and kind of gone through the thorough paperwork of like seeing the guy's travel documents, seeing a picture of the stamps in his visa that proved no, he got back to Canada before Parliament started sitting again. And so everything was above board there. But the trip to China was sponsored by a Chinese company and flagged as a high likelihood of a cybersecurity risk for some of the tech he was bringing, like his laptop.
Yeah, like that. So, a lot of cybersecurity rules of thumb are just don't bring your normal devices to China
or America these days. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird story where like there was definitely disinformation against him, but then there's still like a like you could make something of his trips there. So his accident was last year, so part of me is wondering if this is just a like, you know what, I don't have 100% health, I don't need this bullshit, maybe I'm being told not to hang around, and he's just taking the chance to leave. Chen represents Scarborough North. This, I'm just going to assume before I even get to the election results, is a very safe riding. Yeah, he won with 63% in the last election. So very safe spot for him. Larry Brock for the Conservatives, member for Brantford Brant South. He won the last election with 52% ahead of the Liberals' 41%. It's fairly new riding. It'll be like, this is the one where the Liberals could possibly pick it up if things go all right and turnout is just so. It still probably leans pretty conservative, though, I suspect.
Yeah, it's like rural Ontario, just southwest of Hamilton, in that kind of farming area of Ontario. It's not a particularly liberal riding or area, so it's going to be the sort of thing where, yeah, maybe a real wave election, but you look at the Wikipedia for the redistribute 2021 results prior to the riding being formed out of several others, and that was still a huge 13. There's still a 13-point gap there. It's I think fair to say that this is almost certainly going to be a conservative hold.
Yeah, and sorry, really he's the MP for Brantford Brant South Six Nations. It was previously Brantford Brant. And in 2021, his first election, he won with 40% of the vote, when the Liberals had 28% and the NDP about 20%. So the NDP in that area kind of disappeared, especially with the redistricting and the failed, kind of their abysmal results. And the Liberals kind of became the main opposition. So we'll see. But not great news for Pierre Poilievre to lose yet another vote for a little bit, even if they manage to hold the seat. But, maybe he can get a sycophant in, and that will help his leadership ambitions, even if it's not his prime ministership ambitions.
Yeah, more by-elections to watch. I don't think any of them are going to be quite as exciting as the the Quebec one that's coming up now.
That's the only interesting one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the NDP in North Vancouver, Tabelano, announced it's a mutual friend of both of ours that's run there, Stephen Tweedale.
Yeah, friend of the pod, Stephen.
Yeah, so I think the only federal candidate that's ever come to one of the podcast meetups, but the riding itself is going to be a pretty safe Liberal one, so does work cut out for him.
I know there's a Pirate Party, a past Pirate Party candidate who's come.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Major party candidate. Speaking of the oh, I guess they're not a fringe party, but they're not a major party these days. The Green Party of Canada is having its leadership race. They have announced their 2 candidates who've been approved and now have to find the money and the signatures to formally get on the ballot, which they have a little bit of time to do. Mike Morris and Neera Dookaran. Both candidates need to raise $15,000 and sign up 200 new members, including 50 young Greens, by September 30th. Voters in the Green Party will also have the option of none of the above,
which would just be an amazing outcome. It's unlikely to happen here. I think the general consensus on everyone I've seen on this is that Mike Morris is the clear front runner on this, but it would be amusing.
Yes. Morris was the MP in Kitchener, I believe, for the Greens.
They drew their high watermark of having more than just Elizabeth May in Parliament.
Yeah, from 2021 to 2025. He lost his second bid. So he won in 2021 in Kitchener Centre with 35% of the vote over the Conservatives' 25%. And then in 2025, he dropped a few votes. He actually picked up more votes, but the Conservatives picked up even more to unseat him with 34% to his 33.6%. So it was a tight race. I'm glad to see he's interested in sticking around in politics, because everything I heard about his time as an MP was positive. People who've met him, I've heard good things. One interesting thing about his platform that I've seen is that he's very interested in working with the NDP, especially since his platform seems very in line and meshable with Avi Lewis's approach. Neera Dookaran's platform is very similar. I don't think there's a lot of...
Did she have a platform? I didn't see much on her website.
I saw in the interview they both did with Jeremy Appel that we'll link to. They're very similar in terms of what they're talking about. I think there's more policy to come out from Neera, but there's not much on her website besides rebuilding the party, rebuilding the grassroots of the party, and electoral district associations, riding by riding. Yeah, it's Neera, I guess, for her part, for her background, is a teacher in the Ontario Carleton District School Board. She's run a number of times at most levels of politics, which is common for Greens and shouldn't, that's how Pete Fry and Joe Keithley eventually got elected. Even Elizabeth May took that path of, keep trying until it lands. So I wouldn't knock her for that. And she's been involved in the Green Party in a number of ways. So I think, she has the experience in terms of the party itself, but she doesn't have the prominence on the national stage that Mike has. So there's possibly a path for her if she knows the party better than Mike, but I don't know. My money would be on Mike for this. And it seems like a reasonably decent choice for the party. Gives them, in either case, a newer face, someone with some energy and ambition.
The interesting thing isn't who's going to run in this and win. It's whether or not after they win, there will be a sabotage effort from the previous occupant of the office and their broader faction of the party, like there was last time.
Yeah, I wonder, Morris sat with May in Parliament, but that doesn't mean they necessarily got along. I don't know any rumors either way on the issue, and I am hopeful that maybe May is looking to her long exit, although she has said she's still going to stick around in Parliament, which creates a little bit of a headache for whoever becomes the Green Party leader.
I mean, it's hardly unheard of for past leaders to stick around in Parliament.
Sure.
I think the more noteworthy thing is that the traditional role for a former party leader of stepping back, letting someone else run the party, If they are going to be in Parliament, they play the supporting role. If they step back from politics altogether, they kind of sit as like the elder statesman of the party that doesn't really that like obviously has influence but doesn't wield it in such a way as May and the party executive wielded it when what's her name? I'm blanking on it right now.
Enemy Paul.
Enemy Paul. When Enemy Paul had the brief interlude between the two May leaderships on there, and like not being able to do that, I think doesn't necessarily speak well of the chance that's going to happen better this time.
Well, like there's a
But
difference.
also, like May's pretty old, getting pretty old now, so like maybe there's like a real retirement thing going on, or at least stepping back from that part. But I don't know. It's to be seen, I think.
Well, and also like Morris's path back to Parliament feels like it's Kitchener Center. It's where he lives, as far as I know. It's where he's run for election 3 times and done pretty well in each of those, and just needs to build a bit more. And so May won't need to give up her seat for him, but maybe for Dukerin. The difference, though, here is if May is the one MP, like when Andrew Scheer resigned as leader, he could kind of just drift into the backbench of 100-person caucus. And same with Aaron O'Toole. Like, there are enough spaces in there that they don't need, they can kind of like just, you stop thinking about them. But like the press gallery in the House of Commons is going to see Elizabeth May as the House leader. They'll know her by name. She'll know them. And so when they do want to comment from the Greens, Mike's going to have to do that awkward thing Avi Lewis is doing right now and Jagmeet Singh did for a while, of trying to jump in front and get attention when the media knows who's there and to talk to. So I guess like there's a lot of room for her to be gracious in supporting a new leader or to be an impediment. And that's definitely going to be, like you said, one of the first things to watch. And I do think the other thing to watch is how they negotiate with the NDP, because both parties are trying to find their relevance. Both parties are looking at this kind of like eco-socialist left approach. For her part, Dukerin told Appel on this question that she thinks there's ground between the Greens and the NDP because the NDP is still beholden to corporate interests, like the Liberals and Conservatives quote, big union organizing is a corporate interest. And I think there is like a point she's making about like some labor unions are pro-resource extraction and like have interests that don't necessarily mesh with environmental causes.
Yeah, like there's definitely it's definitely the case that unions, I mean, they're an interest group like any other, and I think a mistake that a lot of people often make coming from the progressive side of things is to not see them as an interest group and to kind of presume that by default union interests are necessarily the broader public interest or the national interest, and that is certainly not always the case. But like corporate's just a weird way to describe it, especially when the phrase special interest is like a well-worn one in politics that's easy to reach for.
Yeah, Morris's own platform has a commitment to work in good faith with other progressive parties in the interest of securing electoral cooperation until we have proportional representation. Like basically, it would be his number one ask in a minority government situation to get electoral reform. It's what the Greens need to survive, basically. So I get it. I also like I want to see electoral reform, so I'm not going to knock him for doing it. It might not have the cachet and pull that it did in 2015, but maybe he's the one to revive the dream. If you want to vote for Green Party leader, sign up for the party by October 14th. The voting will occur between November 2nd and 13th. Go sign up for one of these two if that's what you're eager to do as well, because that will help them be on the ballot. I mean, these are relatively modest requirements, so hopefully they can both get on their ballot, or else they really don't deserve to be leader. Well, from fundraising for political parties, leadership campaigns, to fundraising for 24 Sussex, we talked a couple weeks ago about Mark Carney's plan to rebuild 24 Sussex Drive by launching a fundraising campaign for the construction and having that run through the Rideau Hall Foundation. As of July 31st, the National Post was reporting that they had managed to raise $735,000 from 3,336 Canadians, which is roughly 1.5% of the goal.
Yeah, cool. Maybe they can repave the driveway. But, I mean, I suppose silver lining that there's a lot of concern that we're going to outside funders for this thing. Could be a corruption issue or like an influence issue, and I think we've safely avoided that at this point.
Yeah. Credit to the people who've contributed to this, I guess. There is a limit on the donations you can make, but it's much higher than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be kind of in the realm of the political party donation limits, but the actual maximum gift, do you know what it is, Scott? Take a just random guess. Pick a number.
15,000.
$5 million.
Well, I mean, that might actually be the sort of thing you'd need to fundraise this thing, because that's the thing, is the political party donation limit, you don't get anywhere near the $50 million on that unless you're like really churning out the fundraising efforts on something that is just like much more emotional and high salience than, yeah, now we should get the Prime Minister a working home again. On that, like you're just not going to do it. What's $1,700 at a time? It's about the current donation limit, isn't it?
Yeah, 1,500, 1,700. I don't remember the federal one. Like, I haven't run a capital campaign, but I've taken a few fundraising courses for charities, and like the first thing you have to know with doing a like really big goal, like they want to raise $50 million, and that's why the cap is $5 million, so no one donates more than 10% and like owns this thing. But the like number one thing you want to do is be like, you have half the money you need before you announce, or some like big chunk of the way, so it doesn't look pathetic, because no one wants to be a loser. And right now this looks like a loser fundraiser that's not going to work.
See, the difference between this and those fundraising campaigns is this was trying to solve an image issue on it rather than necessarily raise the money. Like, first and foremost, it was okay, how do we manage the issues around it looking like Carney is just spending money on himself? And like, I thought that was like largely taken care of by him stating that he would never live in the place and would be his successor that would eventually have the use of the house. But yeah, they went above and beyond that and trying to just really separate this out, and just meant that it wasn't necessarily going to be that effective on that, or that they were started from a how do we actually get the money for this thing? Because the answer on that was obviously you use the government for it, because it is a government property that has government uses, and the government should pay for it.
Well, you can go on the website, and I'll put the link in the show notes for you to donate if you really want. But more fun is you can see the full list of donors as of July 27th. They haven't updated it since, but it's just this wall of names. So if you're curious, who does think this is where you should chip an extra $200 or $5 million if you have it. You can scroll
if I have
through.
$5 million, it's getting better use than that.
Even if I have $5 million to go to charity, there's more pressing needs. Mark Carney is not on the list. There are no Trudeaus on the list. The only Harper is Joan Harper, who might be the author, who I Googled, who's a Vancouver School Board author, but might be someone else. Yeah, anyway, scroll through. Maybe there's someone interesting in there, but it just seems like a lot of random people who thought this was a great idea. So good for them. I'm not going to, mock them too much. Personally, the first frequently asked question, why involve philanthropy in this project? Is this just a GoFundMe campaign?
I mean, I get why that's number one on the questions.
Philanthropic support allows Canadians to contribute voluntarily to the restoration of an important national institution while helping reduce reliance on public funds. More importantly, this is not simply about raising money. It is about giving Canadians an opportunity to come together to help restore an important part of our shared heritage. Next, they'll be doing volunteer opportunities to go bang nails.
Just getting a bunch of random people with no construction experience is definitely going to mean we won't have to do this all again in 10 years.
Oh, they do actually have a donor screening process, and if you give more than $25,000, they're going to review who you are, including verification of citizenship or permanent residency. But yeah, you can get a charitable tax receipt for that, and join.
So
35.
When this inevitably doesn't hit the target on this, are they just going to bite the bullet and just top it up with public money at that point?
Yes, but there's no deadline. So they never have to say that's what's happening, and it just kind of quietly happens. So I suspect the next budget includes money for 24 Sussex restoration, and there'll be minus 50 million that we're raising. And then that less will just become, less 1 million if they manage to raise that much. And they will just quietly stick in the rest of the money in one of the budgets. That's how I do it. I mean, I wouldn't have started a fundraiser in the first place because it's dumb. But since they're not trying to raise money by a specific date, they don't need to have an announcement that they didn't raise the money because they're still raising the money, Scott. Just I'm pretty sure Kevin O'Leary is still paying off his leadership debt to the Conservative Party of Canada.
Yeah, quite possibly. So a year or two ago, there was I think Stephen Harper did okay, Peter MacKay was a good soldier, let's help him get out of this sort of thing. I don't think that's ever happened for Kevin O'Leary.
Nor should it.
Yeah, and he can't cover it off himself because of the donation limits. But I don't know, maybe there should be a way that after 15 years or something, you're allowed to just close it out yourself or something. Because it is kind of ridiculous that failed leadership contestants are just saddled with this debt, and you can't fundraise once you've lost. Nobody's giving money to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found one article from 2025 that suggests the Conservative Party of Canada has $500,000 on its balance sheet that he's owing them. And it's just awkward
something
because
most campaign expenses are not owed directly to the party themselves, unless it was the violating some rule that got him dinged.
Maybe.
Or didn't get his deposit back or
something.
I'm just
misreading an article I just pulled up quickly.
I don't know. This was from, would it be 2017, so nearly a decade ago. My memory on the finer points of the Kevin O'Leary campaign just isn't that great.
Well, finally, we have a pair of lawsuits to discuss. Coming first out of Quebec, the province decided a couple years ago to unanimously pass a law to make it so MNAs no longer have to swear an oath to the king to take their seats. This is something they kind of got forced into doing because a number of Parti Québécois members were refusing to take the oath. And then Quebec Solidaire also said they weren't going to take the oath, although they agreed to do it in private with the speaker. And also, like, Quebec doesn't like the monarchy because it's British and they're French, so fair enough. And all MNAs decided this is a great law. Fuck the king. We're just going to do our jobs without an oath.
Yeah, the problem with that is the oath is in the Constitution, and you can't just by legislative fiat of a single province just change that.
Yeah, the typical way a constitutional amendment that affects one province would happen is to pass a bilateral amendment, and this has happened a couple times around religious schooling in Quebec and Newfoundland, and probably a couple other issues.
There's several other examples. There's I want to say New Brunswick language rights was also one of them. It's being used several times. It was even floated as like a possible response to the Cowichan decision. Like it's there is a well understood structure to how to make an amendment with respect to a single province that's both like clearly delineated in the, I think it's section 43 of the Constitution Act, and one that has a fair bit of precedent behind it. Not like a huge amount, but like it's happened enough that it's kind of unremarkable, and like we don't even it like didn't get a lot of news coverage when it happened.
Yeah. That being said, the main part of the Constitution, Section 128, requires every member of a legislative council or assembly of any province, before taking his seat therein, take and subscribe before the lieutenant governor or some person the oath of allegiance contained in the 5th schedule of the Act. So it's actually specified what they have to say, as you said. But there's a note, Section 128 does not apply to Quebec based on the law they passed. This is on the Government of Canada's website, I see. So the Government of Canada seems to have recognized it.
Yeah, which is like the problem behind this lawsuit is that there was a fair bit of criticism from the constitutional scholar community at the time that this was very improper and that that Ottawa was basically derelict in its duty to defend the Constitution and decided to do so for political reasons more than anything else. And I'm looking at Section 43 here, and I don't see anywhere where stick a note on a government website as part of the amending formula.
The claim is specifically there is a unilateral amendment option within Section 45 of the 1982 Constitution that the legislature of each province may exclusively make laws amending the constitution of the province. But that's not what they did. Regardless, one guy said this is all fucked and I think they shouldn't be allowed to do this, so he's suing because the federal government didn't care. This is constitutional lawyer Lawrence David at the University of Ottawa, who heads the Public Interest Litigation Institute. So he has sued Quebec and Canada for Quebec being ultra vires, like not having the power to do this. He argues that Quebec can't do this because they need the unanimous consent of everyone, the House of Commons, the Senate, and all other legislatures to do this, which is not my reading of anything. But
so in his defense, under the unanimous consent formula, you do have the office of, it says the Queen, but really should be the monarch in this case, because that's some gender-specific language that's out of date.
The once and forever Queen. Is it Victoria?
Yeah, so the Queen, Governor General, or Lieutenant Governor of a province. So, if you squint at it, you can at least make the argument that this is like related to the office of the monarch by virtue of it's an oath of allegiance. on that. So like, it's not like crazy. I'm a little we've not read the filings on this. I'm a little curious if they like argue in the alternative that if it's not covered by that, it's at least covered by the general formula, which would be the you know 7 out of 10 and 2/3, or sorry, the 2/3 of provinces and 50% population, or the like single province and Ottawa formula on there. But like, it isn't like crazy that if you're gonna argue the case as fully as possible, that would get put in there.
He also argues that Quebec's law violates Section 3 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That is the section that says every citizen of Canada has the right to vote in an election of members of the House of Commons or Legislative Assembly and to be qualified for membership therein. And he basically says because they didn't swear the oath, they're not qualified to sit, and therefore people have been disenfranchised in Quebec. And he goes further to argue that this could invalidate every law they have passed, or at least every law they pass if they are elected and don't take the oath, which I think didn't happen last time, but would happen after the election happening on October 5th this year.
But if the
Yeah.
PQ gets a majority.
Well, if it doesn't matter. Like, he's saying if they after the election, if they don't take the oaths, it's a illegitimate government, which I don't think that argument will fly.
I mean, courts generally don't we're just gonna blow up everything that has happened for years on this and just like invalidate huge swaths of things.
We're going to invalidate the province of Quebec. I don't see the courts going for that, though.
But they might do like
nice
a
argument.
narrower thing that like prohibits it going forward or something, and not really going to touch the messy bit of like, was things actually technically legitimate in the period before that?
Yeah, they can do that for a non-profit society, but they're not going to do that for a government of Quebec. So that's one lawsuit. I'll be following it. I honestly side with Quebec here. I think the oath is dumb, but whatever.
I mean, even if it is, like, I'm very much in favor of you don't get to make up new amending formulas just because your feelings are hurt by an oath. Like, you got to do it the right way, and like, court should slap. I mean, Ottawa should have slapped them down for that. But if they don't, the court should do that for them.
Or Ottawa should have just like
either said yes or
after.
No. Or
they weren't asked is the problem. So then it would have been awkward for them to say, yeah, we agree to that. And Quebec said, we didn't ask you. Someone who didn't have to ask the federal government, though, was Alberta, who requires its lawyers to pledge an oath to the monarchy before they can take the bar. One lawyer candidate a number of years ago said he couldn't do that because he is a devout member of the Sikh faith, and his belief is that he has pledged allegiance to his prophet, essentially, and to pledge allegiance to the king would be to violate his religious freedom, so he refused. He sued, and he won at the Alberta Court of Appeal. That has now been appealed by the province of Alberta, the Supreme Court of Canada. The lawyer himself has moved to Saskatchewan, where they don't require the oath, so he is able to practice law there. But the case itself is still raising similar kind of questions about these symbolic motions and elements. So I'll be following that one closely as well. It is very funny for Alberta to be the compelled speech province versus, like, I don't know, Atlantic Canada or somewhere.
I mean, it's not like particularly strong compelled speech or anything. And, it's arguably analogous to the oaths of office. So, like, I don't know, they're officers of the court. That's literally the Court of King's Bench is one of the main courts in Alberta. Like, it feels like a mountain out of a molehill to call that like compelled speech.
He doesn't believe in the monarchy, or he doesn't believe the monarchy supersedes his faith. So they made him say something, and he refused. Now, Is it justifiably compelled? That's a different question. Alberta believes it is. We'll see what the highest court has to say in, I don't know, probably about a year, because they only just granted leave on this. And that has been Politicos. Find links to everything we talked about at politicos.ca. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/politicos. Our intro music is Beautiful British Columbia by Serge Plotnikov. Politicos is a production of Leg and Boot Media. Audio editing provided by Jesse Woodward at listener-supported CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo. Learn more at chly.ca.